American and Latino Studies and the Immigration Lab, a professor at American University in Washington, D.C., Ernesto Castaneda. Thanks so much for your time. We're watching there another killing and the Trump administration trying to push the blame elsewhere, but the video footage is pretty clear. One wonders, who checks the legality of ICE agents in the United States?
Good morning, Eve. Indeed, the majority of the American people have seen the video and are pretty appalled. They are very upset, and many people in Minneapolis and elsewhere angry at the level of violence that ICE has done, not in the middle of a raid, not looking for a particular immigrant with a criminal background with a warrant and on the way to their house, but actually in these large operations that see terror in the communities that they pass through, and then a lot of people oppose him peacefully, observing illegally, filming on their phones, that have been detained, verbally attacked, and in this case, killed by ICE, Border Patrol, and other federal agents that are going beyond the legality and the law and the role of these individuals, which is very different from the type of, it's not even policing, but the type of intimidation that they are doing, in this case, in democratic-led cities and states.
Because it comes just weeks after the killing of Renee Good, and I believe there was an FBI investigation after that killing, but more into her rather than the agents who killed her.
That is correct. There's no investigation, as far as we know, towards the agent that killed her. You're right. And not only that, but the statements very clear from President Trump, Vice President Vance, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, and other authorities, basically saying that he wouldn't face consequences for this, and basically communicating to the agents that they could engage in violence and that there will be no consequences for that. So we see this escalation after the terrible incident against Renee Wood. The normal thing would have been for the administration to remove or decrease the number of ICE agents and do more targeted operations, but instead of that, they brought in even more people, and we see the consequences.
Indeed, and one wonders how they might react now, notably given the thousands of people that have taken to the streets despite the very, very cold temperatures.
Yes, very cold temperatures, very hard to protest, but nonetheless, hundreds of thousands indeed in Minneapolis and many other cities in solidarity have come up peacefully to show the rejection against the raids or the operations from ICE and other agencies. And on Friday, we have the largest demonstration before the killing of Alex, but even now after, it's people remembering him and upset that he was killed for no apparent reason. And the justification that the government first gave, that he was brandishing his gun against officials, there's no evidence from any angles that that was happening. So people indeed are upset, but they are seeing that there's no indication that the federal administration nor the FBI are going to do any investigations into the matter. So they're taking this into the streets and politically, because they know that there's going to be otherwise no justice for Alex or Renee so far.
And there's also, we've seen the killings and we've talked about the killings, but also highly disturbing was the detention of that little 5-year-old, Liam Ramos, last week, swiped off the street on his way home from school. And apparently his family had done everything they were supposed to do. And I believe his case isn't an isolated one.
No, it's very common. A lot of people that are in the middle of asking for asylum, they are already turning their papers and they are waiting for the day in court to make their case, are being detained, or people that enter the country legally with this program called CBP One app. They enter legally, and they are the ones that are being targeted. Also people applying for green cards or even in the citizenship ceremonies. So that's easier for the agents to find these individuals because they have their addresses, they have their names. So in order to fill the quotas, they're going for people like that. And unfortunately, Liam is not the only minor that has been detained with his parents or alone. And now there's a lot of them in detention in terrible conditions, and they've been protesting. So yes, also people very upset about that case. And also shootings of Venezuelan-born immigrants that have not been killed by officials, but they have been also injured. And it also seems to have been another incident yesterday in Los Angeles with a Salvadorian man. So this violence is indiscriminate, and there's no real evidence that any of these people were escaping or were in the process of hurting anyone, or they were violent criminals. So indeed, very worrisome.
And what happens once they're sent, I mean, to these detention centres? I believe many of them sent to Texas.
Yes, so they're detained, sometimes, often without due process, sometimes even citizens. And then one of the things that the administration has been doing is they've been sent away from their communities. So it's harder for them to contact family members. So many of them treat them or feel that they have been disappeared by forces of the state. It's very hard for them to contact with their lawyers or for volunteer lawyers to go and try to help them because they don't even know where they are. And it may take days or weeks for the families to locate them. So yes, they may be sent to Florida, to Texas, or other large centers that are overcrowded. There's over 68,000 people in detention right now. There is not enough beds for all of these people. So they are sleeping in horrible conditions. We hear reports of them sleeping in the floor, crowded with these kind of aluminum-looking blankets in very, very cold rooms where the lights are on, very flashy, bright lights on all night and all day. Many of these places don't have any windows. Even the kids are not allowed often to go out and play. So these are conditions that would be illegal in a prison, but because these are supposed to be temporary places before people are deported, they have these horrible conditions. But sometimes people are held there for weeks and for months against U.S. procedures. But it's been harder for Congress people to go and observe these places, and the few nonprofits and priests and people that have been able to go inside have been talking about these terrible conditions.
Yeah, it sounds like they have no rights at all. And I mean, it's not just confined to Minnesota, but we've seen Trump increasingly send more troops to Minnesota. And one wonders why these states, when I believe there's more immigrants in other states, indeed, like Texas.
That's right. I mean, originally, most of these so-called immigration enforcement operations were targeting places that had black mayors. St. Paul has a black mayor. Minneapolis has a white mayor. But for the most part, it's been people where there's large minority populations, or they are Democratic strongholds, or they have a black mayor. But it has expanded. So in Minneapolis, part of the discourse from the White House is that they have been targeting the Somali population, which the president has called trash. And there's indeed some credibility that there's some cases of fraud by some individuals of that origin, but that doesn't mean that because of that the whole community should be targeted, and that Minneapolis will be the force of this. And something else in common is that all these communities are in the border, the U.S.-Mexico border, but also along the coasts and on the border with Canada or the lakes. So therefore, in those areas, there's less civil rights, and because of a law that was passed after 9/11, Border Patrol can be active in these places. So Minneapolis, Chicago, even though we don't traditionally think of them as border cities, they are technically so. And the last case is that because of the agreements that most places in Florida have with ICE, and in Texas, actually, the most deportations right now are happening from those two states, but they're not happening through these very visible, spectacular, media-friendly campaigns that the Trump administration is doing in places like Minneapolis and Portland and other cities, but they're happening through jails and through traffic stops. So they also have been targeted heavily immigrant-populated areas and states like Florida, Texas, even if they are Republican governed.
Where do you see things going from here?
Well, this is not sustainable. Things should change. Anybody listening to the voices of the people, of pundits, of critics, of people in the streets will change tactics. But so far, Stephen Miller, Lewandowski, Kristi Noem, and the people in Homeland Security that are in charge of these operations, they are not elected officials. They are firm believers in the urgency of these mass deportations. So they're going to double down. They're not going to continue. They are increasing their radical rhetoric. Same with Trump. He's getting a little upset that public opinion he can see is turning against these very violent, unjustified causes. But it's very hard for him to change his mind publicly. He will have to come up with a big excuse. So unfortunately, I don't see them leaving Minneapolis very soon. They will eventually leave and go to another city. But for the meantime, they don't want to be seen as losing these occupation in the ground symbolically and this media. So I don't think this is improving anytime soon. But yes, the right thing would be for less forces to be, less ICE to be in Minneapolis. The next struggle, battle, linguistically speaking, is going to happen in Congress this week, when the Senate is going to see if they can reduce the huge amount of money that's supposed to go to ICE and the Border Patrol in the new budget, and if they can ask for some guarantees for minors, for detention centers, for these operations before the money is reimbursed. So we'll see if any Republican is willing to accept this.
OK, one to watch Congress this week. Ernesto Castaneda, thanks so much for your time and bringing us your insight. Much appreciated.